Welcome to Dread Pop Magazine. This is Movie Bites, and I'm your host, Danielle DeVor. Today we're going to talk about the best vampire movies of the 1990s. So sit back, settle in, and let your fangs fly. The Wisdom of Crocodiles from 1998, starring Jude Law. This movie is a bit different than other vampire movies because this vampire has a very specific appetite. He can't just drink blood. He has to have emotion behind the blood, and his favorite, of course, is love. So that means that he has to make his victims fall in love with them before he eats them. If you haven't checked this one out, I highly recommend it. It was released in the United States under the title Immortality. It's a little bit harder to find, but it's worth the struggle to find it. Blade from 1998 with Wesley Snipes. This is probably the most well known movie on this list, given the fact that it is a superhero vampire movie. But it's a fun entry and solid, and I don't think anyone can forget the scene of Blade walking into the rave club. Boy, 1990 was a banner year for vampire movies. So, Vampires from 1998 with James Woods is probably the first well done vampire western. It bears little resemblance to the book it's based on, but it is a very, very fun movie. The Night Flyer from 1997, based on a Stephen King short story. This one is about an airline pilot who has a bunch of, murders following him, and an investigative reporter happens to notice these oddities occurring at all these different airports. This one is a unique vampire entry, especially for its makeup design. From Dusk Till Dawn, starring George Clooney and Quentin Tarantino from 1996. One half of the movie is a crime, thriller, action thing. The other half is vampire goodness, and Salma Hayek is definitely memorable. Sleepwalkers from 1992, starring the infamous Alice Krige. This is a unique movie in that it was the first movie that Stephen King had written solely for the screen and was not based on any other items that he had written previously. It deals with shape shifting, sort of cat like vampires that are actually destroyed by cats, which is kind of a unique concept. And sadly, the movie does suffer in its makeup design, but it's still a fun, interesting movie. Interview with the Vampire from 1994, full of lush scenery and beautiful set design. This one is definitely a must watch. Now, I do think that Tom Cruise was miscast as Lestat. I think that Julian Sands would have been a much better choice. However, Antonio Banderas is so good as Armand that I don't think that anyone is going to begrudge the fact that in the books that Armand was supposed to be a 15-year-old blonde kid. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. Subspecies from 1991. Independent film where we're first introduced to Radu and his Denzians of the night. It's a wonderful, unique film that introduces the idea of the Damphir, which is the process of a person that is half vampire, half human because his mother had relations with a vampire. Tale of a Vampire from 1992, starring the late, great Julian Sands. Now, if you've ever wondered what Julian Sands' a vampire would have been like, this is the movie for you. The film loosely hints at the idea of Julian Sand's vampire being Edgar Allan Poe, but it's not confirmed in the film. But it is a beautiful romantic tale and definitely one that you don't want to miss. Pale Blood from 1990, starring George Chikris. This is a unique vampire film in that the villain is actually a serial killer that's trying to draw out vampires, and the vampires are the ones that come to, well, catch the serial killer. To Sleep with a Vampire from 1993. This one is a remake of a film that was called Dance of the Damned that came out in 1998. The reason I mention this film is that Scott Valentine does a really great job as the vampire. Unfortunately, this film was really hard to get your hands on, so if you stumble across it, definitely give it a watch. Daughter of Darkness from 1990. This is the only made for TV movie on our list here, which, well, there really weren't very many made for TV vampire movies in 1990s, but we'll give it a little slide there. It has Anthony Perkins playing a vampire, which is also a bit unique. And the story actually deals with a unique type of vampire from Bulgaria. I couldn't leave this list without mentioning a few comedy films that I think are entertaining and worthwhile to watch from the 90s that deal with vampires. First one is Dracula Dead and Lovely, and starring Leslie Nielsen. While I think that Leslie Nielsen was a really unique choice for Dracula, I think that the movie itself is very funny, and the scene in the crypt with all the blood is just a gut buster. The second comedy film I'd like to mention is Blood and Donuts from 1995. Now, this movie is not what I'd call laugh out loud funny. It's more of a friendship drama with a vampire and has a few sad moments in it, but it's still a very heartwarming and unique vampire film that I really enjoy. The Big Daddy of Vampire Musicals, Rockula from 1990. If you've not seen this really bizarre film with Dean Cameron about a man who's trying to save his reincarnated lady love from being killed with a ham bone, then you're really missing out. It's strange. The music is very fun, and it's a great addition to add to your playlist on Halloween night. Kingdom of the Vampire from 1991. Now, this one was not designed as a comedy film, but it is so low budget and made for straight to video in 1991 that I think it's definitely worth putting in the comedy section. There are some really entertaining moments with the vampire's mother. It's also kind of heartwarming in a very strange way, and I definitely applaud the filmmakers for going through all the trouble of making this film because they accomplished quite a bit on a very small budget. Vampire Trailer Park from 1991. This is a special comedic entry because this is, as far as I know, the only film that deals with a vampire who happens to be bulimic. So cue vomiting noises and lots of gagging and lots of fake blood thrown against the wall. I guarantee you've never seen another vampire movie like this one. Finally, I'd like to talk about a vampire movie that's not quite a vampire movie but deals with vampires, and that would be The Reflecting Skin from 1990. Deals with a young boy whose father reads a lot of vampire books, and this boy seems to be convinced that the new neighbor in town is, in fact, a vampire. And truthfully, this is probably the most disturbing film on the list. There's a lot of imagery in this one that made me think about it for several days after. So if you've not seen The Reflecting Skin, definitely check it out. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Movie Bites and have a wonderful evening, afternoon, or morning wherever you are. Dread Pop Magazine will be back soon with more entries into the realm of the weird.